On the surface, the bridge of the Starship Enterprise was a symbol of unity, a diverse crew working together in perfect harmony, exploring the galaxy and championing the best of humanity. But behind the cameras, the reality was anything but utopian. The cast of Star Trek endured budget cuts, physical injuries, and personal demons that would have broken lesser actors. Yet the deepest wounds were inflicted by one of their own, a man whose ego knew no bounds. And his behavior would tear the cast apart, leaving scars that lasted long after the final credits rolled. The creation of a galactic phenomenon. In the mid-1960s, a former police officer and airline pilot named Gene Roddenberry set out to create something that had never been done before. He wanted to combine the adventure of a Western with the imagination of science fiction, and he pitched it to television executives as a wagon train to the stars. The idea was simple but ambitious. A series about a starship crew exploring strange new worlds, encountering alien civilizations, and confronting moral dilemmas that reflected the real-world issues of the day. Roddenberry had spent years writing for television, working on shows like Dragnet and Have Gun, Will Travel. But Star Trek was different. It was personal. He built the entire universe around a philosophy he called IDIC, Infinite Diversity in Infinite Combinations. The acronym became the show's spiritual backbone, representing Roddenberry's vision of a future where humanity had overcome racism, nationalism, and prejudice to work together in harmony. The bridge of the Starship Enterprise would be populated by people from all corners of the globe, each contributing their unique perspective to a shared mission. It was a radical idea for the time, and one that would face significant resistance from network executives who were more concerned with ratings than with social commentary. The show's structure was designed to mirror the great westerns of television's golden age. Each episode would find the Enterprise crew arriving at a new planet, encountering a new civilization, and confronting a new challenge. The format was familiar, but the content was anything but. Roddenberry used the science fiction setting to explore issues that could not be addressed directly on network television. It was a clever strategy that would make Star Trek one of the most subversive shows of its era. But translating that vision to the small screen was not easy. Roddenberry first pitched the series to Desilu Productions in 1964. Desilu was one of the most successful studios in Hollywood, known primarily for producing sitcoms like I Love Lucy. The studio's co-owner, Lucille Ball, was skeptical of the science fiction concept but agreed to let Roddenberry develop a pilot. It would be a decision that changed television history. The first pilot, titled The Cage, was filmed in late 1964 at a cost of over $600,000. It starred Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Christopher Pike, Leonard Nimoy as the alien science officer Spock, and Majel Barrett as the logical first officer known simply as Number One. The pilot was ambitious, but when NBC executives screened it in February 1965, they were unimpressed. They labeled it too intellectual and too slow, complaining that it lacked the action and adventure they had been promised. The network rejected it outright. It was a devastating blow to Roddenberry, who had poured his heart and soul into the project, but he was not ready to give up. What happened next was unprecedented. Rather than canceling the project entirely, NBC agreed to an unusual second chance. The network's executive, Oscar Katz, made the unprecedented decision to commission a second pilot. Lucille Ball personally intervened, exercising her influence to keep the project alive. Her intervention gave Roddenberry the opportunity to create a new pilot, which would become Where No Man Has Gone Before. The second pilot required significant changes. Jeffrey Hunter declined to return, preferring to focus on a film career, and Roddenberry brought in William Shatner as the new captain. The show's title would also change to Star Trek, and the iconic opening narration, "To boldly go where no man has gone before," was added. The new pilot also featured significant changes to the cast. NBC executives demanded that Leonard Nimoy's Spock character be cut from the second pilot, fearing his pointed-eared appearance would deeply offend religious viewers in the American South. But Roddenberry fought for the character, recognizing that Spock was the show's moral center. He argued that Spock's logical nature was essential to the show's dynamic, and he convinced the network to keep the character. It was a crucial decision that would make Nimoy one of the most beloved actors in television history. The casting of the rest of the bridge crew was equally groundbreaking. Nichelle Nichols was cast as Lieutenant Uhura, a landmark decision that placed a black woman in a high-ranking, non-stereotypical professional role on primetime network television. The production progressively expanded the bridge crew to include DeForest Kelley as Dr. McCoy, George Takei as Sulu, James Doohan as Scotty, and eventually Walter Koenig as Chekhov in Season 2. Together, they symbolized a completely unified, post-bias future Earth, a vision that was both aspirational and controversial. Star Trek formally made its television debut on NBC on September 8, 1966, broadcasting the episode The Man Trap. The show was an immediate success with critics, but its ratings were disappointing. Production costs regularly hovered around $190,000 per episode, which consistently ran Desilu Productions into severe debt because NBC's licensing fees only covered a fraction of the actual visual effects and set-building costs. The show never placed in the top 30 of the Nielsen ratings during its entire initial 3-year broadcast run, as its core demographics, urban intellectuals and young college students, were not accurately tracked by the television metric systems of the 1960s. Despite its low ratings, Star Trek began to build a dedicated following. When NBC threatened to cancel the series at the end of Season 2, science fiction writers Bjo and John Trimble organized a massive grassroots letter-writing campaign that flooded network offices with over 115,000 physical letters. The campaign forced NBC to grant the show a 3rd season, proving that the show's fans were passionate and organized. Star Trek was canceled in 1969 after 3 seasons, but its story was far from over. Kaiser Broadcasting put the series into heavy afternoon syndication, where it exploded in global popularity, spawned the modern Trekker fan culture, and directly laid the financial foundation for Paramount Pictures to establish a multi-billion-dollar cinematic franchise. The show that had failed in the ratings had become a cultural phenomenon, and its legacy would endure for generations. However, most fans never realized that behind the scenes, the show was plagued by budget cuts, creative conflicts, and physical dangers that would have broken a lesser production team. The struggles were relentless, and they left scars on the cast and crew that would last a lifetime. On-set battles and behind-the-scenes struggles. By the time the 3rd season rolled around, the network had lost confidence in the show's ability to attract viewers. NBC drastically cut the per-episode budget by 10% and moved the broadcast time to the Friday night death slot, a time when teenagers, the show's core audience, were simply not available to watch. The move was a death sentence for a show that was already struggling in the ratings. The network had effectively given up, and the creative team was left to pick up the pieces. Infuriated by the cuts and schedule changes, Gene Roddenberry stepped back from active daily production during Season 3, leaving the show in the hands of producer Fred Freiberger. Freiberger was a veteran producer who had worked on shows like The Wild Wild West, but he was not Roddenberry. Critics would later accuse him of degrading the scripts into campy, monster-of-the-week stories that lacked the moral complexity of the earlier seasons. The show's creative decline was a source of immense frustration for the cast and crew, who watched their beloved series deteriorate before their eyes. The physical demands of the show were equally punishing. Costume designer William Ware Theus was known for his elaborate and often revealing designs, but the reality of bringing those designs to life was far from glamorous. Theus intentionally engineered outfits for guest-starring actresses that relied on complex, painful double-sided skin adhesives to keep hyper-revealing clothing from shifting on camera and violating network censorship rules. The actresses endured hours of discomfort, their skin irritated by the adhesives, all for the sake of a few seconds of screen time. The dangers were not limited to wardrobe malfunctions. During the filming of the season, one episode, The Enemy Within, an electrical fire broke out on the soundstage. The blaze was intense, fueled by the highly flammable materials used to create the show's alien landscapes. Crew members were forced to physically drag actors off the set while inhaling toxic smoke. The scene was terrifying, a reminder that the pursuit of entertainment sometimes came at a steep cost. The health of the cast members was also put at risk. During the filming of the season, one episode, Arena, A special effects mortar exploded too close to the actors, leaving both William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy with lifelong tinnitus. The condition, a constant ringing in the ears, would plague them for the rest of their lives. A cruel irony for actors whose voices were their primary instruments. Financial struggles were also a constant presence on the set. Despite starring on an internationally recognizable television show, DeForest Kelley faced immense financial hardship during the first 2 seasons. His contract paid him strictly as a freelance day player rather than a salaried series regular. He was not guaranteed work from week to week, and he struggled to make ends meet while his co-stars enjoyed the stability of salaried positions. The emotional toll of the production was also significant. James Doohan suffered from severe, unaddressed post-traumatic stress disorder originating from his time in World War II. He had lost his right middle finger, a physical deformity. He spent his entire television career hiding from the cameras by positioning his hands behind props. The trauma of his wartime experiences lingered beneath the surface, and the demands of filming only exacerbated his condition. Under the crushing physical stress of filming 14-hour days, several cast members turned to alcohol to cope. Nichelle Nichols and Leonard Nimoy both later detailed in their respective autobiographies how the grueling production schedules directly fueled substance issues and contributed heavily to the breakdown of their marriages. The pressures of fame, the long hours, and the constant scrutiny took a toll on their personal lives. The on-set battles and behind-the-scenes struggles were a testament to the resilience of the cast and crew. But the chaos was not limited to the production itself. The show's leading man brought his own brand of turmoil to the set, and his behavior would create tensions that would last long after the cameras stopped rolling. The on-set chaos of William Shatner. For decades, stories have circulated about William Shatner's ego-driven antics, and the supporting cast members who shared the bridge of the Enterprise have been remarkably consistent in their accounts of his behavior. Shatner's efforts to dominate the spotlight were legendary. According to multiple accounts from cast and crew, the actor routinely walked into the production office to read newly drafted scripts with a stopwatch, counting the exact number of lines allocated to supporting cast members and demanding that their dialogue be cut or reassigned to Captain Kirk. It was a systematic approach to ensuring that Kirk remained the undisputed center of attention. During ensemble bridge scenes, Shatner would go even further. He would systematically alter his physical blocking during live takes, stepping directly in front of George Takei or Walter Koenig to force the camera operators to crop them out of the final broadcast frame. The move was subtle enough that audiences might not notice, but his co-stars certainly did. Takei later recalled that Sulu's lines disappeared frequently, and they all knew what the source was. The manipulation continued into the film era. When director Nicholas Meyer drafted a script for Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan that featured Sulu getting promoted to captain of his own ship, Shatner personally lobbied studio executives to kill the plotline, arguing that Kirk's crew should never advance past subordinate roles. For Takei, this was a particularly bitter pill, a denial of the character growth that every other member of the cast had been afforded. The rivalry between Shatner and Leonard Nimoy was equally intense. When Spock proved to be a hit with viewers, leading to a notable TV Guide photo spread, a competition began between the two leads. Each assumed they were the singular star of Star Trek, and each tried to hog as much of the spotlight as they could. The pair's rivalry became so toxic that show creator Gene Roddenberry wrote an angry letter demanding that they both stop the selfishness and egocentricity immediately. Nimoy later acknowledged the tension, knowing that Spock was seen as stern and intelligent, and that Shatner feared the character made Captain Kirk look impetuous and irrational in contrast. Shatner was so concerned that he infamously stole the CBS lot bicycle that Nimoy had been using to get around the sound stages. The hostility was not limited to the two leads. The supporting cast members felt the sting of Shatner's ego most acutely. James Doohan's hatred for Shatner was so absolute that he publicly stated he would never forgive Shatner's ego, and Doohan explicitly barred Shatner from attending his final conventions and his eventual memorial services. It was a stark rejection from a man who had shared the screen with him for decades. Despite their long-standing on-screen partnership, Shatner and Nimoy experienced an intense falling out later in life. The breach occurred when Shatner covertly filmed Nimoy at a convention without permission for his documentary project, The Captains. Nimoy had declined to participate in the documentary, but Shatner's cameraman secretly recorded him during a convention appearance. When Nimoy discovered this, it was the final straw. The two men left the convention without speaking again, and Nimoy refused to return Shatner's calls for the remaining 5 years of his life. George Takei's grievances with Shatner were perhaps the most enduring. At a massive anniversary convention, Takei revealed that during the entire 3-year run of the original series, Shatner completely ignored him off camera and genuinely claimed he did not know Takei's name until they began filming the theatrical movies a decade later. The insult was profound, a complete dismissal of a man who had been a regular cast member and who would go on to become an iconic figure in his own right. Takei has been particularly vocal about Shatner's behavior on set. In his 1994 autobiography, he recalled that Shatner didn't recognize him when they worked together on an episode of Chrysler Fever before Star Trek was picked up. The tensions extended to off-screen events as well. Following the passing of Nichelle Nichols, Shatner faced widespread public backlash from fans and former colleagues when he opted out of attending her formal memorial service, choosing instead to attend a pre-scheduled horse breeding show in another state. The decision was seen as a final insult to a woman who had been a trailblazer and a beloved member of the cast. A particularly strange chapter in the feud involved Shatner's non-attendance at Takei's 2008 wedding. Takei and his husband, Brad Altman, were famously the first queer couple to apply for a marriage license in West Hollywood. According to Takei, they invited Shatner and received no response. Shatner, however, claimed he was not invited and reportedly called Takei's wedding a publicity stunt. In his 2011 book, Shatner Rules, the actor continued the feud when he made a series of bizarre comments about Takei, including a joke that was widely criticized. Takei, for his part, has made it clear that he will not forgive Shatner. In a 2023 interview, he later vowed never to mention Shatner's name again, declaring that the feud had become tiresome and that his own legacy was far more substantial. The on-set chaos of William Shatner left permanent scars on the cast of Star Trek. While some eventually made their peace with him, others never did. The animosity that began on the soundstage of a low-budget sci-fi show in the 1960s has persisted for more than half a century, a reminder that even in the utopian future of the Enterprise, ego and rivalry could not be left behind. Hidden set realities and feuds. The chaos on the set of Star Trek was not limited to the antics of its leading man. Behind the scenes, the show was plagued by hidden realities and feuds that would remain buried for decades. The stories that emerged from the sound stages of Star Trek paint a picture of a production that was far from the utopian vision it portrayed on screen. Grace Lee Whitney, who played Yeoman Janice Rand, was unexpectedly fired from the series in the middle of Season 1. It was a shocking development, especially considering her character had been heavily featured in early promotional materials and concept art. The suddenness of her departure left fans confused and Whitney herself devastated. In her 1998 autobiography, Whitney explicitly stated that a high-ranking executive associated with the production cornered her on the studio lot and treated her inappropriately just days before her contract was terminated. The experience was traumatic, and she was left without a job and without support from the studio that had employed her. Following her sudden firing, Leonard Nimoy was the sole member of the production who actively tracked down a traumatized Whitney. He used his growing star power to demand that the studio hire her back for background convention appearances and eventually cameo roles in the feature films. Nimoy's intervention was a rare act of kindness in a production that had otherwise abandoned her. For decades, the official studio public relations line claimed Whitney was written out solely because her character limited Captain Kirk's romantic flexibility with alien women of the week. The narrative was a deliberate cover-up, designed to obscure the administrative victimization that had occurred behind closed doors. While Gene Roddenberry publicly weaponized his reputation as a progressive, utopian visionary, his private behavior on set was reportedly exploitative of young actresses. The man who had preached a message of infinite diversity was not living up to his own ideals. Roddenberry simultaneously maintained active, overlapping extramarital affairs with both Nichelle Nichols and Majel Barrett, while living with his wife, creating an incredibly hostile, competing power dynamic on the production floor. The relationships were not just personal indiscretions, they were professional conflicts of interest that created tension among the cast. Roddenberry frequently adjusted script requirements to include unnecessary, highly inappropriate costumes for actresses he was personally pursuing. The casting couch was a reality on the set of Star Trek, and it undermined the progressive message that Roddenberry was selling to the public. He also reportedly used studio funds to elevate Majel Barrett's status on set, first as #1 in the pilot and later as Nurse Chapel. This created intense resentment among the rest of the cast, who were forced to work under her surveillance while she acted as Roddenberry's eyes and ears. Barrett's presence was a constant reminder of the double standards that existed on the set. The tensions extended beyond the original series. In 1997, studio executives forced actress Jeri Ryan onto Star Trek Voyager during Season 4, outfitting her in a restrictive, painted-on silver catsuit, specifically to boost dwindling male viewership numbers. The decision was a calculated move to attract male viewers, and it immediately created friction. Lead actress Kate Mulgrew, who played Captain Janeway, fiercely and openly resented Ryan's inclusion. Mulgrew had spent 3 years fighting to ensure Janeway was respected for her intellect rather than her appearance, and she viewed Ryan's hyper-romanticized character as the opposite of what she was trying to achieve. The resentment was not just professional, it was personal. The tension between the two actresses was palpable. Mulgrew reportedly refused to speak to, look at, or acknowledge Ryan when the cameras stopped rolling. The atmosphere was deeply toxic, and crew members were reportedly forbidden from helping Ryan adjust her uncomfortable costume if Mulgrew was present on the stage. Jeri Ryan later confirmed on various retrospective panels that the daily psychological torment from Mulgrew was so intense that she experienced severe, chronic nausea. She would routinely vomit in her dressing room every morning out of pure dread before filming scenes with Mulgrew. The pressure was immense, and it took a toll on her health and well-being. Co-star Garrett Wang, who played Harry Kim, eventually had to act as a buffer between the two women. He later stated in interviews that Mulgrew's behavior was uncharacteristically cruel and completely broke Ryan's spirit during her early years on the show. The feud was one of the most toxic in Star Trek history, a stark contrast to the idealized vision of cooperation that the franchise represented. The hidden set realities and feuds were a reminder that the world of Star Trek was not always the utopia it appeared to be. Behind the scenes, the cast and crew were struggling with the same human frailties that the show sought to transcend. The tensions would eventually contribute to the collapse of the show's original vision, but they would also leave a legacy of struggle and resilience that defined the franchise for decades to come. Isolation, incompetence, and franchise collapse. The final chapter of the Star Trek saga was marked by a series of failures that would bring the franchise to its knees. The isolation of a young actor, the incompetence of a director, and the structural fallout of a historic financial bomb combined to create a perfect storm that would end an era. The 2002 film Star Trek Nemesis was supposed to be a triumphant return for the cast of The Next Generation. Instead, it became a disaster. A 25-year-old, relatively unknown actor named Tom Hardy was cast as Praetor Shinzon, the primary villain and clone of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. The role was a massive opportunity, but Hardy was not prepared for the scale of the production. Terrified by the scale of the production and battling severe personal substance addiction at the time, he completely isolated himself from the tight-knit cast, retreating straight to his trailer the second a take wrapped. In his memoir, Patrick Stewart explicitly detailed that Hardy never engaged in social pleasantries, refusing to ever say "good morning" or "good night" to any of his co-stars on the set. Stewart believed it was due to Hardy's addiction and his isolation, and he was wrong. On the day Hardy wrapped his final scene and walked out of the studio gates without saying goodbye to anyone, Stewart turned to Brent Spiner and Jonathan Frakes and muttered a prophetic misjudgment. "And there goes someone I think we shall never hear of again." The irony was that Hardy would go on to become one of the most acclaimed actors of his generation, starring in major blockbusters. Years later, it was revealed that Hardy's bizarre, cold behavior was a desperate psychological defense mechanism against the film's director, Stuart Baird, who treated Hardy with immense cruelty and non-stop public criticism throughout the entire shoot. The isolation was a survival strategy, not a sign of arrogance. Baird's incompetence was legendary. Paramount hired the veteran film editor to direct Nemesis, despite Baird openly boasting to the press that he had never watched a single episode of Star Trek and actively refused to research the franchise's lore. He showed utter contempt for the legacy cast, consistently referring to LeVar Burton as Laverne on the live microphone and calling the character of Geordi LaForge the guy with the weird eyes. The disrespect was appalling, and the cast was furious. Marina Sirtis publicly insulted Baird during promotional press junkets, completely abandoning traditional Hollywood PR filters due to her immense rage over how he handled the production. The tension on set was palpable, and it showed in the final product. During a complex stunt sequence involving moving platforms, Baird became bored with the technical setup, walked off the soundstage entirely to go to lunch, and left actors Jonathan Frakes and Ron Perlman suspended painfully in mid-air harness rigs for over half an hour without anyone operating the release controls. The disregard for the safety and well-being of the cast was shocking, and it was a sign of the deep dysfunction that plagued the production. The structural fallout was devastating. Released in December 2002, Star Trek Nemesis grossed a dismal $43 million domestically against a massive $60 million production budget, officially sealing its fate as the single lowest-grossing film in the entire history of the franchise. The catastrophic failure caused Paramount to instantly cancel a pre-approved script for a fifth next-generation feature film, abruptly ending that era of characters on a note of disaster. The movie's failure, coupled with the collapsing ratings of the concurrent TV show Star Trek Enterprise, forced Paramount to pull the entire intellectual property off television and out of movie theaters for years. The franchise went into hibernation, completely freezing production on all Star Trek media until J.J. Abrams was hired to implement a total hard timeline reboot in 2009. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.